Hello, and welcome to HITC Sevens. And before I begin, I just want to address some of the talk that I've seen about myself over on social media. I know a lot of people are now calling this the greatest YouTube channel that has ever and will ever exist, and are comparing me in terms of my contribution to the silly old field of making YouTube videos about football to things like Albert Einstein's contribution to the field of theoretical physics, Plato to the world of philosophy, and both Gandhi and Martin Luther King to movements for civil rights. I couldn't possibly comment, of course, but just to be mentioned in the same sentence as some of those figures is, well, pretty humbling. Obviously, I don't think anything like that. To me, it seems totally ridiculous, but given the sheer number of people who have been saying these things, I just thought I'd best address it and say thank you all for being so kind. With that embarrassing acknowledgement out of the way, in today's video, I'm going to attempt to put together a best 11 made up of players who were released by Premier League academies. Just like Plato would. To be clear, in terms of what I mean by that, because I have used quite a complicated criteria, as Einstein might, I am only interested in players who were released by current Premier League teams following a period of time in their academy systems without registering a first-team appearance, and who then went on to join teams who weren't in the Premier League at the time. It's not as confusing as it sounds. So, Dwight McNeil, for example, wouldn't be eligible because, although he was released by the Manchester United Academy, he then joined the Burnley Academy, who were in the Premier League at the time. Likewise, although Jadon Sancho left the Manchester City Academy without making a first-team appearance to join Borussia Dortmund, who obviously aren't in the Premier League, he did so in a move worth £8 million rather than being released, so he also wouldn't be eligible. Hopefully I have helped clear that up in a manner befitting of the greatest YouTube channel on the planet. So without further ado, here is my best 11 of players released by Premier League academies. Goalkeeper. Pierluigi Gollini. A very recent Premier League recruit, you may or may not know that Tottenham Hotspur are not Pierluigi Gollini's first team within English football. Indeed, they are not even his second. Gollini joined Spurs on loan from Atalanta over the summer, with Tottenham having the option of signing the Italian permanently for a fee of £13 million should they trigger his buyout clause. Though we are yet to see the 26-year-old start a game in the Premier League, where he serves as club captain Hugo Lloris's understudy, he has made 7 appearances in all competitions, 5 in the UEFA Conference League and 2 in the EFL Cup. 8 years ago, though, a teenage Gollini was honing his skills in the much-esteemed Manchester United Academy, where he spent 2 years. Gollini had mixed experiences with the Red Devils, describing the club's rules as being absurd and comparing them to a military regime, whilst conceding that they did force him to grow up quick. Gollini joined Hellas Verona after being released by the Red Devils before returning to English football with Aston Villa. Things didn't really work out for the Italian in the Midlands, but that hasn't deterred him from taking a third stab at making it in the English game. Gollini arrives at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium off the back of 3 excellent seasons at Atalanta, and the eccentric Italian gets the nod from me as our number 1. Right back, Luke Ayling. There are some players who you have your doubts about at virtually every stage in their career, but they just keep on proving you wrong. I suspect Luke Ayling fits rather neatly into that category for a lot of people, not least Arsenal's academy coaches. Per Mertesacker said as much in a recent interview, stating that Arsenal's academy coaches during Ayling's time at the club felt that there was, and I quote, no chance whatsoever that Ayling would ever make it in the Premier League. Ayling spent a decade in the Gunners' youth ranks from the age of 8 to 18, before being released off the back of a loan spell at Yeovil Town. Ayling joined the Glovers on a permanent basis, in League One at the time, where he won promotion to the Championship, before moves to Bristol City and Leeds United. Ayling is one of a number of players at Leeds to have really bought into Marcelo Bielsa's ideas, and his stamina and versatility have made him a key cog in Leeds' rise over the last 3 or 4 years. Centre-back. Benjamin White. Some of you may have heard Benjamin White quite recently telling people that his name isn't Ben, it is indeed Benjamin, which no one seems to have paid a blind bit of attention to. I must admit, I've always previously been guilty of calling him Ben, but I'll make a conscious effort to get it right from now on. Anyway, Ben White was released by the Southampton Academy at the age of 16. I'm just kidding, Benjamin, about the name, that is. He was released by Southampton at 16. White subsequently signed youth team forms at Brighton, this coming in the summer of 2014 when the Seagulls were still playing in the Championship, under the stewardship of Sami Hyypiä at the time. White's progress at Brighton was very linear, going on loan to League 2, League 1 and Championship teams in successive seasons before stepping up very capably to the first team. So capably, in fact, that he was signed by Arsenal for £50 million over the summer. Centre-back, Tyrone Mings. There are 20 teams in the Premier League, which means that, assuming that they all had equally strong academies and all released equally talented players who went on to have equally impressive careers elsewhere, distributed evenly between each position on the pitch, the probability of both centre-backs in this 11 having been released by the same Premier League club, by my estimate, would be just 0.025%. And yet, both Tyrone Mings and Benjamin White were released by Southampton. Just like White, Mings joined Southampton at the age of 8 and was axed at 16, when the Saints took a sledgehammer to their academy budget due to financial constraints of the club. Mings would make that look like a poor decision, but he would have to do it the hard way. He took 2 years out of the professional game to get an education on a football scholarship before joining non-league Yate Town. He then signed for fellow non-leaguers Chippenham Town in the Southern League before joining Ipswich Town for a fee of £10,000. Mings' most recent transfer, from Bournemouth to Aston Villa, was worth a potential £25 million, and even that now looks like a bargain. Mings captains Villa following Jack Grealish's departure, and he has won 15 caps for England since making his international debut in 2019. Left back, Courtney House. Sticking with Aston Villa players who have a good relationship with Gareth Southgate, Courtney House is a left-sided centre-back by trade who primarily serves as a backup to the likes of Tyrone Mings and Eberechi Eze, but he can also provide cover at left-back. Full name Courtney Paul Duncan House, those middle names, a tribute to his mother's favourite musician Paul Weller and her favourite footballer Duncan Ferguson, at least according to Wikipedia. I hope it's true, but I would like to see a citation. House began playing youth team football for West Ham at the age of 8. He was released by the Hammers at 16 and again by Birmingham City at 17 before he settled at Wycombe Wanderers. House's performances in League 2 earned him a move to Wolverhampton Wanderers, where he reached the Premier League, and the former favourite of Gareth Southgate at England under-21 level joined Aston Villa from Wolves for £3 million in 2019. Central midfield, John Lundstrom. A man who could win 3 World Cups and a Ballon d'Or and still be best remembered as a fantasy Premier League legend, John Lundstrom was among the biggest bargains in the history of the game. During Sheffield United's first season in the Premier League, when he was incorrectly listed as a defender, meaning he got all of the points when the Blades kept a clean sheet, as well as bagging 5 goals that season, all whilst being dirt cheap. Lundstrom was also dirt cheap for Oxford United in 2015, who signed him on a free transfer after his release at Everton. A native Scouser of Norwegian descent, hence the surname, who was actually a boyhood Liverpool fan, Lundstrom spent a decade at Everton, where he went out on loan 6 times without ever making a first-team appearance. He rebuilt his career following the setback of being let go at Oxford, where he won promotion to League 1 before being snapped up by Sheffield United. Following 4 seasons at Bramall Lane, Lundstrom departed following Premier League relegation over the summer just gone, heading north of the border and linking up with fellow Scouser Steven Gerrard at Rangers. Central midfield, Tom Kearney. An unusual player in some respects, Tom Kearney's career has been one of numerous ups and downs, and his youth team career was no different. A very one-footed but gifted midfielder, Leeds United let Kearney go after 9 years at Ellen Road on account of him being too small. I have spoken plenty of times about how stupid that is before on this channel, and making that decision look even sillier, Kearney would actually enjoy a growth spurt over the next 12 months, becoming a 6-foot-tall 17-year-old midfielder. By that stage, he had signed for Hull City, who soon won promotion, and Kearney made his Premier League debut for the Tigers at the age of 19. An injury ended up costing him his chance in East Yorkshire under Steve Bruce, but a move to Blackburn Rovers breathed new life into the adopted Scots career. Kearney has been with Fulham since 2015, where he has twice tasted promotion to and relegation from the Premier League, routinely looking brilliant in English football's second tier, but all too often just a little bit passive and anonymous in the top flight. Right wing, David Brooks. I should start this by saying that, as many of you will have seen, David Brooks was recently diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin lymphoma at the age of 24. I believe Brooks has already begun treatment for his diagnosis, and I'm sure you will all join me in hoping for the most positive outcome. Brooks is a tremendous footballer who enjoyed a meteoric rise, impressing at Sheffield United before lighting up the Premier League during his first season at Bournemouth. He was even nominated for the Premier League Young Player of the Year award that season, but at the start of the following campaign, Brooks suffered a couple of really nasty ankle injuries, which ruled him out for most of the season. A season in which Bournemouth were relegated from the Premier League. Before he joined Sheffield United, though, Brooks was part of the youth team setup at Manchester City, where he spent a decade before being let go. Sheffield United were in League One when they picked him up, thus making Brooks eligible for this 11, adding flair and creativity to our right flank. Attacking midfield, Eberechi Eze. Subscribers to this channel know all too well about the high regard that I hold Eberechi Eze in, and I suspect that if not for a long-term injury setback early on in his time at Crystal Palace, he would already be making waves within the Premier League. Given Eze's incredible ability on the ball and physical attributes, it amazes me that he was released by Arsenal, Fulham, Reading and Millwall's academies. At the age of 18, whilst looking to pick up the pieces, Eze was offered a contract at Queen's Park Rangers. Within just a couple of years, he was the best player at the club. A terrifying prospect to defend against when he's fully fit and full of confidence, Eze joined Crystal Palace in 2020 for a fee of £17 million, which I still think may well prove to be a bargain. Left wing, Jack Harrison. The most controversial inclusion in this 11, whilst I gave a fairly detailed description of my selection criteria during the introduction, there is one aspect that I neglected to mention, and that is when players leave Premier League academies to join non-Premier League teams free of charge, but of their own accord rather than the club choosing to let them go. As far as I'm aware, that was the case with Jack Harrison, who left Manchester United after 7 years in the club's academy in 2010. Harrison turned his back on arguably the biggest club in world football, who were still good at the time, in a move to join Berkshire School and Blackrock FC in Massachusetts in the United States. Harrison became a star of college soccer later in the States, before stepping up to Major League Soccer with New York City FC, and eventually returning to England with Manchester United's local rivals Manchester City. Harrison now plays for Leeds United, having joined Marcelo Bielsa's side on a permanent basis last summer, following 3 years on loan at Ellen Road. Centre forward, Lee Tomlin. Alright, I will level with you people, I was struggling a bit up front. Initially, I thought I could pick Josh Maja, star of the hit Netflix series Sunderland Till I Die, who also plays a bit of football on the side, but he was released by Manchester City and joined the Sunderland Academy whilst the Black Cats were still in the Premier League, thus ruling him out. I am sure there is probably someone else out there, and it's worth pointing out that I will likely have missed 1 or 2 players from this 11 who ought to have featured, simply because it is quite a difficult concept to research. But in the end, I've had to go with Lee Tomlin up top, despite the fact that he is currently without a club and he isn't actually a striker. I must admit, I'm a bit surprised to discover that he is only 32 years old. I'd have had him down as being a good bit older, since he seems to have been around forever. Tomlin was released by the Leicester City Academy way back in 2005, at the age of only 16, dropping down into League Two with Rushden and Diamonds. Though Rushden were relegated from league football during Tomlin's first season, he continued to impress in the non-league game before catching the attention of the eagle-eyed scouts at Peterborough United. The posh snapped Tomlin up, and the skillful, if not always the most athletic-looking forward, or number 10, has gone on to enjoy a very good career in the Championship and even played a handful of games in the Premier League. So that is it for today's video. I'm not going to do a bench because it is pretty rubbish, but thank you all very much as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure, as always, I can't believe I have to tell you this at this stage, but just do make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, otherwise there's the potential you could miss out on a masterpiece like this, and I wouldn't want that to happen to anyone. You can also find me on social media, on Twitter and on Instagram, via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.